So now I want to do some demonstrations finding, hiding, and seeking out these three-dimensional forms: the cube, the sphere, the cylinder, the cone, even in the pyramid, your three best friends and beyond, right? And go find some more in still life objects, but now using more traditional media. So I did the other one in the Cintiq Wacom Touch, and now I'm going to do some in traditional media. And so I'm going to use for this drawing Carbothello pencils, which are pretty soft, so are a little bit more difficult to control. And then of course I'll have a trusty triangle when I need a hard edge, and then I'm going to have also my kneaded eraser and my white eraser. Okay, all right, so let's get started. So I've got this image now of a shoe, so that's kind of a classic still life object, and we'll start out and we'll just kind of figure out what are some objects that we can see in there. Where first thing I can kind of see in this object is it's probably partly a cube. So I'll show you what I'm thinking. Try to open your mind to that. So I'm seeing this kind of structure kind of come down like a cubic form for kind of the entire shoe. Or you could actually think of it, you know, as a tube form as well. And then as it comes up, it kind of curves over like that. So it's kind of a curved blocky form in there. And then of course it has later on this opening in through here. So it's very blocky where it moves right in this direction, and then it comes down in this direction quite a bit. Or you could think of it as, you know, if it's moving in this direction, right, and up and over, you could think of it as a cylinder, right? And so you have that kind of movement. And then as it moves from top left down to the right, all this is kind of a turn, concentric kind of turn, right? To feel that kind of three-dimensionality. And then maybe it ends here, right? And then maybe there's a new, well, there is a new direction in through this way. And so this might be, you could think of it kind of as a cone, maybe a smaller cone on top, like that, if you would. And it kind of gets shaved off in a little bit cubic. So we can combine forms and then alter forms within the drawing itself. And then if I drew the bottom of the shoe, it's even kind of a blocky, kind of pyramidal, you know, form this way, and then on and up. So really breaking it down into these simplified, you know, forms and shapes, so we can really see what's going on with the actual true nature of the form. Okay, so using that as a guide, I'm going to go ahead and start laying in drawing the shoe. So we can first think of the shoe as kind of a flow in a gesture. So I'm thinking of it this way, building up. And I'm going to use the cube method for mine. You use what I think you need to use what's best for your drawing. I'll do the demo in a kind of a cube form, and then we'll build it through there. So I start to see this top layer of this shoe coming down all the way through, kind of as a cube, and then from this apex of the back where the foot heel would go in, I kind of see that coming down and then in like that. So I'm keeping my drawing really light, really blunt with my tip, okay, or the side of my hand, my palm, if you will, okay. And so I see this at the end here, where the pinky toe might start to emerge as a definite plane break. So it moves in this direction, and then all of a sudden it wants to change direction that way. And so we'll start to build up and through here like so, and then I start to see it as another big strong kind of change, a sort of well, kind of a cone, a blocky kind of cone. Even both of these are kind of the same. So we'll get a feel for how these come up and over and down through. So I could even take, and I'll even tighten it up a little bit and make it more of a structured line, kind of some of the other ones. So I'm modifying a little bit here into this kind of double planed cube a little bit. And these are just guidelines to tell me that in my drawing, in my conception of form, I'm trying to break this down into volumes and solids. It's not unlike what we do with the figure. If you've seen other videos that I have, if you browsed a lot, hopefully you have, you've seen the figure done in a volumetric way, and that's the same kind of thing. We're just applying it now to still life objects. A lot of the techniques that go with the figure also go with still life objects. They're kind of the same. So I'll be doing kind of double duty to show everybody both of that. A little horizontal alignment to line up this top area, right? Always using horizontal and vertical alignment. If you don't know about that, there's a lesson for that too. This can come down, so you can see that we're starting to get a feel for this shoe. So this may or may not be accurate in here. I don't care right now. I'm just getting some sense or feel of it, and later on we can do a whole lot of correction with our drawing that we come in. All right, so I feel like we got the form. So what have we analyzed so far? So this movement from the side of the shoe is doing this. See how it's moving? It's turning downward, and then it's kind of cupping and going up underneath too as well. So we want to feel that kind of movement. And then about right in through here, later on, I'm going to show you where that shoe, the sewing, that darker aspect of leather might be in through here. That's where, about right in through this plane break where I made that, that's where the form starts to arch over, right, into this other turn. So these arrows tell you what I'm thinking when I'm drawing. I don't draw that when I draw on my own, but they show, right, this kind of this movement in transfer on through. All right, so let's go a little bit further now, and we'll make this shoe a little bit more natural looking. So we'll take it from kind of a volumetric object, and we'll start to, or a conception of form, and we'll start to make it into something a little bit more shoe-like. So we come over here and we see this dips in. We can see that start to dip in. And the collar of the back of the heel, right, starts to come over, right, and through. Okay, wrapping around. Okay, so what helps me now is, as I conceive form, I know that the heel of the foot goes inside here, so that's a cavity in through here, but it's also the top plane of our box, you know, coming down and over. And so as I move through and catch the edge of the collar right in through here, I'm really mindful of that plane break. We dip down, okay, and over, and then quickly we come way up. So now we've got the tongue of the shoe. I think it's the tongue of the shoe. I'm not a shoemaker. I know somebody who designs shoes, Pamela Diaz-Martinez, she'd know. And we'll come on up here. So we've got to come up pretty high to where this center of this kind of tongue is, which is down through here. Here's the center of the shoe all the way through now. Down and through and over. Okay, we have that. And now I get the back side of this as it turns through and cups over. Okay, right in through here, this cups through. The flap of the tongue, right through it there and over. And then see how it turns downward? Right here's the angle to the line here. See how this turns downward in through here? And this is starting to turn on that plane of the shoe, right? So it's, again, that boxy plane right there tells me that's a nice turn downward. Then I can come over here, I can kind of start to work, I know that's a little straight. Then I can start to work this curve over. This curve comes down right in through here and over, okay? And so we start to get the meat of the foot where the shoe goes in. Right in through here, it's kind of curved over. Start to feel that through a little bit. Work some contour line. If we need to, we can kind of get this little design in through here. Okay. A little kind of extra tongue in through here. Just put a little shadow so we can kind of see that coming through. So now what I'll do is I'll start to get this planar turn. So this whole thing was a box, but underneath here, this is kind of a pyramid, isn't it? Kind of a pyramidal boxy form. So it's got this little lip indentation, right, where it goes into effect, turns in down. This is kind of the side plane of it. So it's like, so if we took this top of the shoe off, this pyramid could look something like, if we simplified it to here, and if we saw through the shoe, it would look something like that, like a wedge. So shoes and feet are relatively the same when we draw them. Now I know they're not the same, but they have the same structure based on the foot, and the foot is like a lazy triangular kind of wedge. So there's our wedge here. Now it comes downward. Let's modify it. It comes downward. I can maybe make a tighter line. I love to use my hard edge to show man-made lines. And then it starts to curve over right in through here. And the major curve break happens about right in through here. Notice I haven't drawn the teeth of the wedge or the bottom of the sole of the shoe yet. It's not important yet. So we'll get through here, we'll get that turn, and that's where it really strongly ends, about right there. There's a strong plane break of that wedge, so I can kind of say, okay, there I'll go. Now it kicks up to kind of a different form. This whole area, right in through here, is a slightly changed form now, right? We see it coming through here. It's like a kind of a cone coming through. And then popping over right to here. Here's the tip of that edge of the shoe where the toes are. Coming through. Block it off. So let's finish that out a little bit further. So we'll go over here and say, okay, here's the end of that toothy part of the shoe where it helps with water and slippage and all that stuff. Ice, whatnot. And then we kind of curve, it curves up because the shoe touches here, and then the shoe raises up off of the ground. So we'll bring that line over right to here. All right, we'll tighten that up a little bit. Okay, so now we're on our way. So this kind of all fits in together, like so. Now this area where you see this darker area right in through here, right? That's where this starts to turn and flatten out. So I'll go along with this kind of shading right in through here. I'll make a little broad shading stroke, a little soft. Keep it kind of soft in through here. Right in through here I can smear just a little bit. I don't like to over smear or teach my students to over smear. Be careful that if you're doing that in your drawings, you're over smearing. It can be a little amateurish. And if you're not sure, send me a drawing, and if I can get to it and see it, I'll try to help you out and say, hey, you're probably over smearing here. Alright, so this flaps over because it overlaps, and this comes back over with the side of the shoe over here. Here's the true center, about right in through here, up and over, right in through there. So this whole thing is doing this, right? It's turning. We're finding those forms. So we have a cube, excuse me, a cylinder, a cone, right, that we're looking at, that we worked with today. And so this is a cone, right, but then it gets wedged off here. And so you modify even further through there like we did right where the shadow is, and we come down a little bit. So let me add quickly these little cut ends and show you how dimensional they are. So we have this, right? Then we have this turning up a little bit, right? So we can kind of get the outer shape of the thing, which is a two-dimensional problem. It comes down here and then over. Now watch this. This comes in, so it's a 3D. It tells us it's a 3D form, so I can put a little shading. Make that disappear in there a little bit further for you, right? And then we come in and over here. This tends to come down further. This could be a little thicker too. Start to add to that. Keep that sketchy. Coming in and through and down. So I'm just finding the shape of this shoe And then we'll go back in here, like so. Put a little shading, let it fade off a little bit so we have a couple of more teeth to work with here and downward. And let's see, maybe one more or so. And through here and over to there a little bit. Okay. And so these can bring back over like a blocky form. And through here they come over like a blocky form in through there. Okay. So now we're really on our way. And we really, if you look at what we have now, we have essentially the structure of the shoe. So I'll just draw a little bit of the tongue in through here, and then we can get on to the next one. Still not about detail. We'll get to detail stuff a little bit in the future. So I can take this flap in through here, and then I can say with my shoestrings, if we shorthand our drawing, I'm thinking about little oval openings, little tubes or openings, 1, 2, 3, and then maybe the other one's kind of hidden in 4. And then to get the gesture of the shoestring, just have a tonal kind of feeling to it, light and tonal. Feel the gesture, feel the rhythm of it. Even still life objects, just like figures, have a gesture. Almost everything really does. And through here, and then we can say the shoelace coming down, tie in right in through there, and then they tie up and over. Through here, 1, right, and then I can bring this up a little bit. 2, and then this one kind of ties over. And through here, don't be afraid to change and adjust, just like I did. All right, and then there's another tie, shoestring tie in through here. All right, so let's take this now, and maybe we can go a little bit, use a little bit darker pencil, and we can finish this out. Give it a little bit of tightness in through here. So we're naming, right? We're naming it part of a cube. Is it a 2-point cube? It looks like it was a slightly 2-point cube, right? For the top as I go through here. We found that. Back over here and give this a little bit of more dimension. Depth in through here. Not a ton. I'm following shadow patterns, but this particular objects are not lit in a way for artists drawing, painting people. They're lit with a lot of different light that's reflective, so it's not as three-dimensional as you want it to be. We have to fight it a little bit further, and that's not a bad thing because we're seeking out these forms that are hidden. If I was lighting, and I didn't light this object, if I was lighting this object, I might just use one stronger light source or the stronger cast shadows that I'd want to work with. But I think for our purposes here, this works out, I think, really pretty well coming on through. So there's a real kind of strong geometric feeling to some of this, isn't it? And that's okay. And to get that feeling across, I'll also come in here and I'll use that straight edge at times. I don't always use a straight edge, but can if I feel like I need to, or if I feel like that's what's going to communicate the best part of drawing the form, then I'll use it by any means necessary. And so we have this little extra detail in through here, right, up and through and over. Here's our true center of our form, right in through here, coming down. That tells us we get this nice flap in through there, flapping on over. And of course we see this nice shadow that's made by about 2 or 3 different light sources right in through here to help that shoe turn right. Then we can get this side. So we're just emphasizing a little detail and a little structure. Structure is more important than detail, always, always. Blend this in a little bit. You're kind of on your way, and I'll finish out with maybe giving this a little bit more expression in through here. With the shoelaces. And the shoestrings over here and whatnot. All right, so there you go. So we broke that down into essential forms, the cubic form, right, the cylindrical form, and even we pulled out a little bit of a cone I could throw if I wanted to. We could throw in imaginary cast shadow. Watch this. So I'll pretend like the light source is really light from this direction. Okay, and that means that, and it's very not very intense, I guess we could say. And so just to give this a little bit more of a presence, this drawing, I'll throw a little cast shadow down here. And the reasoning or the logic behind it was just a better design study to show you guys, but also to show a little bit of its presence, its physical presence on this table. So I could throw this down here and put a little cast shadow underneath here as it would pop through as well. Okay, all right. A little bit of extra line. Okay, all right, so there we go. Let's go on to the doll. Let's draw a toy figure, toy doll, and see how we do with that. So now we're going to work with this doll. So this little little figurine, little princess here. And I'm gonna, for this drawing, I'm gonna use a pen, a drawing pen, the Coptic multi-liner. I think it's a 0.5, and it's kind of a sepia tone. And I'm gonna use my trusty hard edge if I need it. Okay, so drawing the doll is not unlike drawing the figure in a sense. So if you haven't drawn a lot of the figure, this is kind of like that. We can draw a very volumetric kind of form. So we're going to be using, I see throughout here the sphere. Okay. I see the cylinder quite a bit in many different locations, and I like to use my little hard edge, sketch with, and I sketch with it. I don't use it as a hardcore edge a lot of times. I just tighten up the edge. So my cylinder here, and then most definitely I see a cube. So we're gonna go find these things your friends are hiding. Trust me, they want you to find them, but you've got to work at it. But they're there. They want you to find them. And I see also, I could make out a cone or a pyramid for sure here. So I'll draw out a cone through here. Maybe I'll draw a better cone so you can see it. These are drawing lectures. I better be able to draw, right? That would not be good. Okay, and I'll put a little bit of contouring around that one, and of course the cylinder too, and the sphere a little bit through here. All right, so I can for sure see those as well. So all of these friends are located in different quantities and qualities, and at times they morph and they change from one back into another form. pretty quickly. You'll be surprised by that. So let's tackle this little adorable doll here, and we'll work through. So the first thing I look for when I'm drawing this still life object or this figurine is its gestures, its flow or movement as it's flowing. She's kind of leaning forward this way, isn't she? So she's sort of moving this direction. So we'll kind of get her to fall right in this kind of direction. So she's kind of flowing in through here. Now she's very head heavy. So she's got a pretty heavy head. So the first thing I see with that head is kind of a modified egg form and a blocky form right in through here. Or it could be a cylinder too as well. And I'll show you what I'm seeing. So from the top of the tiara downward, we're going to draw her head in through here, okay? And this is kind of a modified egg form. Now she's tilted a little bit, so we want to get that tilt. We don't want to draw her straight up, right? Because she's not straight vertical. She's tilted over. So look for that. Okay, so we have our figurine, or a doll, or child, whoever. And we've got her tilted, okay? Now, it can be, since it is very contoured around, I'll contour this, right? Feeling that way through. She's like a sphere, but it's kind of a little bit more of an egg form. Or I could see it as, I'll show you a couple of other options, a cylinder. If we're looking slightly below it, okay, coming downward, the cylinder could be tilted like that. And her chin is here, so I can feel that cylindrical form too as well. Or we could have said this is kind of like a block. So if we come over here, we can say, well, I might think about seeing a little bit of the top of her head, so I actually might show that just a little bit over and through here, so we could just see the top a little bit. And the reason why we see that tiara, so we might see a little bit of the top of her head in this blockier form, and then as she comes downward, her head gets a little tapered this way. And of course we see her chin there, right? And then we can come on down underneath. And you could even curve this out, so you could play off the cylinder and the box all in one kind of shot. So there's slightly different ways to approach that, and there are probably even more than that, but you probably don't need a whole lot more than that. But I went ahead and used this sort of an egg form over and through here. That's another good friend. It's kind of a squashed sphere. I'll put a little cast shadow there on the table. Maybe it's sitting down on something. So it's kind of a squashed sphere, and it's a great shape, great form to use. We'll see it show up a lot, actually. Okay, so we have that. I have her chin in through there. So let's move on to a little bit more of the body. I'll just gesture in some of the hair in through here, and the tiara will sit up in through there. Okay, like so. And that's kind of a cone form, isn't it? Even though it's kind of flat. So we have that located in through there. Okay, so now we can move on. We'll move down, and I'll find the line for her shoulders, moving in kind of this slight diagonal direction. So we have that. Now the neck, kind of a classic cylinder form. Over and through here, we can see it's very narrow compared to the head, very small. It's a childlike, obviously, figurine. So there's a cylinder there. So can you see it? I'll draw the top of it inside her. This is going to be a diagrammatic kind of drawing, so we won't worry about so much detail. So we have this cylinder about right in through here. Okay, and so your job is to connect them too as well. Chin through here, this wider chin. This gives a square kind of jaw for a little baby. And through, there we go, and through there. So the next stage is to feel this whole area of her little tiny rib cage area. So I'm going to feel the distance, so you can see my thinking. I'm kind of making a mark in through here. You can see this, her chest, from where her belly is and through here. All this is, I'm starting to think of it as a cylinder. in through here, in the top, in through here where her dress is, from here, the top of her dress, right in through here to here where it starts to expose the neckline, a little bit of the shoulder, right in through here, right? So we see that, and it starts to get a little bit wider at the bottom here, and a little wider at the bottom, maybe just slightly through there. So I'm looking at that length, okay? So I'm not worried about the detail, the folds of the cloth. I'm just thinking about that form. And I don't always draw these forms so hardcore when I draw the figure for myself. I imagine them, but we're trying to go find out what's out there. Seek out from the hidden, right? And to draw what we start to see to make it believable or manifest itself outwards. Okay. All right, so I've got that. Now what about her skirt? Her skirt, I see it a lot like I do the cone. Okay, so it's kind of a bell cone. It's really broad, or you could extend the cone way up in through here if you want. Maybe I'll do that for effect. So right in through here, just to make this a little clearer, this kind of umbrella shape, we can start here and then work our way outward. And look how more wide she is. If you put a straight line to where you think the edge of her dress is to the end of her head, it's pretty far out there. So it's probably about right in through. Here's a nice diagonal alignment line. So we're working with that cone here and then outwards right through here. Okay, all the way out and through there. And so we're going to start to say, okay, what about the bottom right of that cone? Where is that going to be located? So now we see this distance, and we can start to say, okay, here she is over here. Nice kind of ellipse. If we drew the ellipse all the way through to feel the back of where her existence would be, we can start to feel it. The more you can start to feel those kinds of things, the better. That's why drawing these forms in and of themselves, keeping a sketchbook to do that just constantly, is a powerful tool to give you the conceptual ability, framework to draw these forms more clearly and resolutely, no matter what you want to do. You want to abstract them and change them and make paintings just based off forms. Look at Al Held. Look at his work. I believe he's American. Don't know if he's still alive, but he's kind of a geometric abstractionist, but in 3 dimensions. Gorgeous, gorgeous work. Al Held. I highly recommend seeing his work as well to see how a fine artist that doesn't work with a figure but uses these 3-dimensional realistic forms to make fine art expressions. They're fantastic. He's pretty much internationally known. Okay. All right. So see how we have her leaning, which is what we want. Now we have our bell form, which is kind of based off the cube. So I drew this. Probably I wouldn't draw it so much later on. I would just draw this sort of half cylinder, like the top of a fried egg. But I did want to show you that we could use the cone as well. It's important to see. All right, so we have that. So we have her coming through now. And let's start to finish out the feet, and then we'll attach the hands. Okay, then we'll add a little bit of detail, and then we'll move on. It's not about final finished detail. So notice that. See how she's moving? Her leg is moving in this direction, right? So we find the gesture, and she's leaning over in this way, right? So the other leg is coming out in through that direction. So the my arrows try to tell a story about where I'm seeing and where she's coming, through and into. I think that's important. All right, so the dress we know will end down here a little bit. I'll give it a little bit more of that fold in through here. Right, and then we'll start to see her leg coming through. Classic kind of little cylinder right in through here, where her ankle is, coming down in through here. Classic tube. So I'm seeing this. It's tapered just a little bit down to the ankle from her little calf, down to where her foot starts to go into the shoe, ankle bone. I guess on a figurine would be here and here coming through. So you get that crease, right, and then she'll go into the shoe that way. So we have our little bitty ankle bone in through here, and on the other side we get a little bit of a crease because it's going to change direction on us. And then the bottom of the foot, or this part of the foot, goes back in this direction, right? So we can see it over here as a little bit more of a triangular wedge. Okay, we can see it here to here coming over, and it's wedge-like. So we see a little bit more of this space, just slightly. I'm showing probably more than what we, yeah, maybe about right, about right in through there. So if I shave it downward, or if I tone it, cross hatch it, I'll get the right word in a moment. We see a little bit more of the right side. So if we come down here, we can start to say, okay, this is like the top of a block right in through here, coming over, okay, a little bit more in this direction, and then it gets a little triangular right in through here, a triangular, and the wedge starts to curve over, doesn't it? Curves over where her foot is, and it comes through like so, and back through. There's the side plane of all this. If we just wedge it together before we make the heel, and then this comes up, and then the heel comes around here and tucks back in a little bit. Okay, so just broke that down into a boxy form, and then sort of a triangular, cubic, yeah, kind of wedgy form to work her out. Okay, and I can just put a little, tighten that up just a little bit, just enough to show you. And there we go. All right, so let's catch the other foot in relationship to her entire form. So we have to make sure that we see the trees for the forest, and the entire forest, which is her, for the trees, right, all together. So notice that she is on a slight angle with her foot. So the first thing I analyze is a horizontal and diagonal alignment here. Right, her foot doesn't touch here. And so it's about up and through here where the other foot falls, right? So it comes through here. So the first thing I see is another little cylinder. I try to get the distance between the negative space between the two little cute little legs. And then we've got another cylinder here, right? And through. We've got that. Okay, so there's our cylinder. Now this little wedge, babies can kind of do this, children, they kind of turn their feet sort of inward at times. And so we have that. This comes in this direction now. We see that arrow? Okay, we have that. And so now it's another kind of boxy, sort of triangular wedge that comes downward. Then over here's the true center, right in through there, and around. Okay, maybe a little bit more here and downward a little bit. Okay, we see this curve over and our wedge, and then back this way. Okay, and then down and through, and then the plane break is where her shoe ends here and on over to complete the kind of wedginess. And of course we have the heel turning over and through here. This really turns inward for this part of the foot, right? And this one turns more outward, like so. So this is more out to show the outside of the foot. Even this is curved even further, right? So like so. So we have that to that coming down. So this is like a side plane of this wedge right in through there. So we have that. Then we can get a little bit of the thickness of the shoe coming on over in through here, curved over where her little yellow slippers are, and on through, and then we're on our way. Okay, so simple forms made into slightly more complex in this case. And then we try to put them in their, locate their position. So we locate their gesture, right, their direction, and then we locate in stop motion, if you will, what their true nature of their form is. In this case, most of it just a cylinder. All right, so let's work with the arms and hands a little bit. And I think now I'll take the time to put a little bit more of her dress on. So this little brooch here is a little triangle kind of form we'll put into effect and through here. Okay. Little piece of jewelry. Let's just kind of sketch it in. And then she's got these wonderful little sort of shoulder, I'm not a dressmaker, shoulder area parts of her dress. They're really pretty. So we'll get those in. Same thing over here. Notice it's on an angle, right? So it's angled this way, and that way. And then we can bring her shoulder over here, connect those up a little bit. Put a little shadow in through here. So this comes up shoulder, over, kind of down, kind of triangular. Okay, so we have that coming through. Now we have a little spot we can start to put our arms and our hands in. So the direction of the arm and the hand over here to the right, excuse me, is this direction. So we're moving here, right? And I'm thinking about this direction here, and then locating what's going to be cylinders, right? So I've got to move it in through here, and then down over, which is going to be kind of just for the hand for now, which will be kind of an oval for this hand, right in through here. So I've got that in my direction. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put the other one in to just locate its depth and dimension and direction. Okay, so on the other side over here, notice I can draw kind of a curved diagonal from this hand over to here to see where it's going to fall. And I feel like it's going to be about right in through here. Okay, I see her hand there. And so she's moving her entire arm. I can connect that. She's moving in this direction, that flow and direction there. And it's kind of, again, more cylinders and maybe an oval kind of egg form for her hand, for her entire hand. Okay, so let's start to get now the arm and hand together. So we have kind of a sausagey little arm here coming in this direction. Okay, and it's essentially a cylinder. So we have a cylinder here, right? Okay. Get that over a little bit. A little lacy thing. So we have the cylinder there. Then we have another one that's changing direction. It's a little wider here, right? You see it coming through in this direction here. So it comes over and on through here, right? And then it's kind of an egg cylinder form. You want to feel that through. So we have this turning in this direction and this one coming over in that direction as well. So we're seeking out our form. So it's a tube, but it's kind of a tube and an egg form together, right? We have that, and it starts to come downward a little bit. And you could cut it open if you wanted to, like a cylinder, but it's also like an egg form. But it does turn. You have that turn in this direction across that way. It's really important to see. And then for the hand, we'll simplify this. We'll abbreviate it for now. This is kind of a boxy form in through here. The whole thing was an egg form. Then it can be a boxy form on the side. Can you see that? A little boxy form there for her hands. And then where the knuckles are, this can be a line coming over like so. Okay? We could curve this over a little bit. And then her thumb could come out like a sausagey cylinder through here, right? And this comes down, this little knuckle, this condyle, the bone. She comes down and she's got another little cylinder that way, right? So we have that. So fingers and hands and toes are just like the bigger form. So if we continue on, she's got, is that 4? Does she actually have 4? Cartoon figures generally have 3, so she's not a cartoon figure. So we'll come in, and I'll show you a technique you can do for fingers too, is you can pretend like they're in a glove, so group them all together. Their flow and direction is back that way. Do you see that? And so all that, for now, they're grouped together here, and then they emerge this way. Now they all are separate, so there's a little space between, but we do see the entire flow coming out this way. And then to break them down a little further, we have each finger is a tube, comes down this way, and then another one slightly in this direction. Then the same one over here, separate form, okay, coming out of this boxy form, okay, downward, and then another little angle, and through here, here's another tube, through there, then the same thing. It's pretty light there, it's hard to see. And this turns over, and I'll change just slightly direction, then I'll pull this one down just a little bit, and a little pinky emerges as another tube right through here, and then kind of downward. So they all have to be drawn separately because they are separate little entities. And so now we have the same concept. We used a box. We sawed out, the box was hiding. First I conceived it as an egg form, and then a box, and then I put fingers. So if we put fingers coming in this direction on the plane of our box, it was like this. So here's our tube, our cylinder coming out, like so. And that starts to tell the story of fingers. And of course they're separate, and through here coming out, like so. They could be going in major different directions. But that space between your hand, your fingers, there's a space between that, right in through here, right? You never want to draw them together, unless of course you're webbed. If you're webbed, then draw them webbed. Go for it. I don't know too many webbed people, but doesn't mean it can't exist in fantasy, right? So if you're drawing fantasy stuff, hey, if that person is webbed, if she's a swimmer or he's a swimmer, or it's a swimmer, hey, draw them webbed. Go for it. All right, so let's tackle this other hand here, and then we'll do a few facial features, and then we'll end out this particular drawing. So now we're coming over, and of course we've already got our direction, our dimension. So now we want to put on her little sausage hands, our arms, and so we're going to bring, let's see, the end of her chest is about right in through here, so we need this. That gives us some negative space. Hair is about right in through here, coming down, right? And so we see her little arm coming out this way, and we see her little arm with a little shoulder exposed. So it's a little wider in through there. This could be a sphere. See it? Maybe I could conceive it as a sphere right in through there. All right, so we have that. Now we're going to have our little sausagey part of our arm, the forearm coming through, and it's kind of a sausagey form too, kind of a tube, kind of an egg form coming on down to about right in through here. Okay, coming on through, we see that. And if we cut it off, it could be kind of a tube, like so. Or it could we could just conceive it around and draw it like a sausage form. Kind of an egg form, kind of a cylinder form. Not really either, but in the really close to being in the ballpark. And that's, again, what we're talking about. Is finding these forms, but also knowing that they can be modified really quickly to what you need. All right, so let's put on her hand on this side so we can start to attach the hand here. So I look for the entire outer shape, which is kind of an egg form, and she points a little bit with his finger, so we can bring that over. This entire form comes back in like so. So that's the gesture of that of that hand right in through there. Okay, so then we can kind of sort of see it as a box where her knuckles, her little knuckles underneath here are, right? This is the top of the box, downward and below. Here's the top side plane, if you will, right in through there. And all this is on a downward plane. That's hard to see, really hard to see. So if I took this and blew it up for you, here's what I see in my concept of this form. Here and here to there, over there, and then through that way. Okay? And then of course the fingers are going to merge and come out that way. And the thumb is going to sit right here on top. Not easy to see at all for sure. All right. So let's draw that thumb. The thumb emerges from about right here in this doll. And so here's the back of the cylinder. And then we'll bring it out in direction here. We'll keep it simple. And it will end about right in through here. Kind of a blunt or blockier end of the tip. And through there, and it comes over. Gets a little bit wider so we can see that tube. Keep it really simple. And through there, and it's got a little extra fat gathering. That's like an egg form underneath it. Right in this area. Then we can start to take her finger in through here and come over. Down, here's a tube. Okay, and then it breaks off at the joint, right? And changes direction. And we'll come down and see it now in this direction. We can kind of just attach those at the joint break and through there. And the same thing happens with the rest. We can kind of just group this over. This comes in. There's our tube there. There's our other tube hiding in through there. Same thing. This one gets hidden over, and then the pinky emerges. At any point, any finger right in through there and up and over. And they go back into the fat part of the knuckle. And there you go. So you have that blocky egg form feel, and then the cylindrical feel for the fingers. They can be cubic-like forms, or they can also be cylindrical forms too. Any way you want to conceive. So that can be a lot going on there, but if you can break it down into simplified forms, boy, you can really, if you can start to see these forms, you can really start to draw, I think, more confidently with more believability in resolution. Okay, lastly, let's go on a little bit to the head, and let's tackle a little bit more of what she's communicating to us here. So we'll get a little bit of the hair. I'll bring it over of the hairline, kind of running through here. It splits a little bit, kind of comes up. Sketch that through, and she comes over a little bit like so. A little fuller through here. Okay, like so. Get a little negative space of the hair. I'm just getting a bearing of what she's doing. And through here, her hair comes down. There's the gesture of the hair. That looks pretty good. So let's tackle this head a little bit. This really hairline kind of frames her in this direction and through here. So we can find the center line of our head on a diagonal, right? Here's the center line of our head. That bisects the head into two. And for this head, the eye line, a little bit different than normal human head, a little bit rounder and taller. But right here about center, so her eyes, eye line, the center of her eyes about right in through here. Okay, and then we'll make a little mark for the bottom of her nose, a little lower in through here, and then she's got a kind of an open mouth, a little bit right in through here with a kind of an open expression. Of course, the ears will be about on the eye line for her and over there. So we'll make a few marks so we can see that, just to get our bearing straight for our figure and our figurine. On this head, so we can start to place these features in. They're fairly flat, but I want to make a comment about the eyes and the head a little bit. Even though they look flat on the figurine model, I really want you to conceive them as spheres or as balls, little tiny like ping pong balls for the eye. And so we've got this rounded eye, but then her eyelid, actually not eyelash but lid, sort of comes over like this and down, right? So we have that, and then we have the other, oh, there are some eyelashes there, eyebrow up and through here. And so she doesn't have much of a bottom eyelid that's exposed. I'll put a little bit here, and it kind of ends in this diamondy shape over, and maybe just a little bit underneath. You don't want to put too much eyelid under here. It'll make her look older. She's baby young, right? And so this whole thing is a ball, and then we get this super huge anime kind of an eye, pupil and iris here, right? And then highlight there, and a little bit more dynamic with the pupil and the iris kind of in here. So be careful, all of you kiddos out there and whoever. My audience tends to be a little bit older, but anime is fine, but be careful. Start to think of the eyes as three-dimensional rounded balls, Christmas balls, but it's the sphere. And you'll be happier that you did, and they'll be more believable. So let's put a few on here, and let's work with this head, and I'll try to keep my head out of the camera so you don't see it as much. So we're going to come over here and move through in this direction. So this has got a little bit of a plane. It's kind of a blocky form. The side jaw here, and then also in this direction too as well. So it gets a little shaved off here, and also through here, and we'll kind of put on our little chin right in through there and there. And so the eyes, this whole system with including the eyebrow is pretty large in through here. Here I can get even more complete by outlining her face, mapping this in the sketch. And so this whole system, this curve from the eyebrow comes over and on in. I can see it this way, very, very gently. This system, look how large the system is from the raised eyebrow, kind of a happy, gentle look here. And this kind of comes over in this system like that. That's like the whole eye socket of a skull, all right? But you can also carry that over to the bridge of the nose, which is very, very slight. It comes down this way, and I don't want to make hay of it too much because it's so soft it barely comes out, because she really has kind of an upturned little button kind of nose in through here. So we have that coming down. And so that's where I'll see this rhythm, and I can actually grab the nose first. And the nose is kind of, it's this sort of coney shape like this, downward through. So we can make it into a little bit of a cone first. If you could see it like that, that might help. Little hub here, little hub with the width on the other side, and then we can come up a little bit and downward where the ball of the nose is, running through here a little bit, and then she's got a little upturn for the nostrils here, and a little bit of the nostril there. We can start to see. You can start to see that a little bit better. Little tiny button nose, not a lot there, right? Then let's get the eyebrow in, so we'll kind of just tone in the eyebrow. But again, the point of this over here is to show that this whole system is rounded like a ball, this whole thing, rounded through here, but the actual eyeball part of it is about right in through here. So I'm going to keep a real light touch in my pen so it doesn't get too heavy, but so you can still see my thinking in through here with her eye. Okay, and up and over, rounded ball first. and then I'll get the diamond shape of her eye, which is kind of on, you see it on an angle like that? So she's on an angle this way, and the other one is angled slightly that way to give that uptick. So we have that I'm looking at, and then of course we have just a little bit of that eyelid with the upturn of the brow, or the lashes, excuse me, in through here. We'll come down, right, come through and over, and then of course we have this eyeball. It's a pretty big eyeball, and through here, okay, and over, and then we'll come down like so. And then we get a little bit of the white of the eye showing in through here, just a little touch like so. And so the pupil and the iris sit in here, and it's pretty large. Essentially these are just circles at this point in time. Here, sketching that in, and then there's an extra sort of sub-highlight here that we see. And then the main eye is broken down kind of into a little flatter pattern right in through there. Okay. And then rounded maybe just a little bit more in through here. And then she's got a pretty decent height, another sub-highlight right in through there. So we can tone in this eye just a little bit further. But everything was based off of our best friend, the sphere. This whole system of roundness right in through here was based off the sphere. So I think that's very important to know. You've got to have that going on for yourself rather than just drawing it, thinking about it flat in the beginning. Then you can turn it into a flat style later. That's something that younger or less experienced people in drawing don't realize, that most drawings are done as if with a three-dimensional feel, and then the flat style comes on after that. Okay, so we can make this a little bit of a sub pupil into here, pupil iris area. Okay, so let's go now for the other side. And you can tell again where the brow ends here, but it wants to pull down into the eye, especially coming in through here, or excuse me, down to the nose, in through here. And so we get that feeling, but you don't see much going on there. There's just a little bit of form, kind of a tube, just barely. It's really soft because they want to emphasize her little button cube, cone-like nose in through here. So let's get the other eye. Now the other eye is sitting on a diagonal, remember? So she's sitting on a diagonal. Keep that. So you don't want to make that straight across. You want to keep that at a diagonal, right? So we have that. Okay, so we get the eyebrow coming over here. Okay, and then downward, coming through there. Okay, so we have that. And on through. Kind of, it feels this rhythm of the head too over through here. You can see that coming over. And then we get into her hair overlapping her ear a little bit. And we can add some of these curls. You can even add that while you're thinking about the eye a little bit, so just to get closer to getting it finished. Getting that movement and rhythm. She is really fun to draw. Most things are, I find that, obviously. I'm a professional artist and I teach as a profession in public service. So yeah, I think that drawing's pretty fun. Would think so, right? Okay. If not, we're in trouble. Everybody's in trouble. All right, so you get this ear folding over a little bit through here. Okay, so the eye again. So remember, on that tilt, so tilt it over here. See how we can help locate that by diagonal, then bringing some horizontals over. Roughly horizontals over. So ball the eye. Get that ball of the eye right in through here. Nice and rounded through. Okay. just the rounded part of the eye. She's on a diagonal angle with her entire eye, and it's not lower than the nose. We see that too as well. We got to be careful not to make it lower than the nose. So here's the ball system. There's the sphere that I'm thinking about over there. Then we're thinking about right the diagonal. So from the eyebrow, the lash here, and if I look over where the eye ends, right in through about right to there, see how pointy that is? So that makes kind of a nice line for me to go for in my drawing here. It's kind of like a little American football, or if you're in Australia, like an Aussie rules football. It's pointy a little bit more. I think ours is more pointy in the US, because you guys, Aussies, kick it more, which is a pretty cool sport, mostly. And this comes down a little bit, so we get that a little bit more of a pointed look through here. We have that coming through. And so lastly, to finish this out, we want to get that pupil and iris, which again are just super huge, right? So here, that comes across and over, and then over here, there's a little bit of the white of the eye that shows through. Super fun to draw. So the first thing I get is this larger shape. It's kind of like glass of the pupil part, and through here. And he's got this sort of sub highlight again down below and through there. And then there's a major highlight about right there. So I know I won't touch too much of those. But then we can get in here and say, okay, the darkest part of the eye is about right in through here, so I can start to tone that in so you'll see it better right in through here. Okay, and then we have this sub part down below, kind of right in through here that gets a little bit darker in through there. So again, all that was based off of the sphere. So getting information onto a rounded, essentially a rounded ball. Now I could take some contouring lines here and emphasize this kind of rounded contour just a little bit. So you can start to feel that. The more you can feel that, the better. Contouring around, this is kind of rounded and soft. Little light contours, rounded over. This is kind of like I'm thinking about a cylinder. Even though I know it's not, it's a head now, right? So, but it's got a soft transitional curve, just like this, just like this. So the truth of this is this contouring, right? Around the form, around the form. Here's an ellipse on it. Same thing can happen in through here, okay? So let's put the mouth on this little princess, I suppose, and maybe a little folds, and we can be done for this part. Okay, so the little mouth in through here. So I'll get the width of the mouth. Look how the full width of the mouth is pretty narrow. So it's about at the end of the eye. It's about here and about through here. It's pretty tiny, okay? And so I'll bring down this little space in between her nose, her mouth. It's called a little philtrum. Right in through there, and then we'll start to just put gently on the V shape of the top lip. Okay, then we'll curve this downward and through here. So it curves, especially in ladies, it curves deeply, and it wants to curve up, and then it folds over like so. This whole area is like a little sausage here for the top lip, a little sausage for the left part, a little egg form. And kind of a little, this is a little bit lazier on this side, and a little sausage on the right side. And then it wants to tuck in and over, like so. Because this comes down, her little cheek comes down and tucks in right in through there, which also continues to go, if we kept going, because it's very light, very slight, right in through there. And might narrow this out just a little bit. You can do that by bringing over some dark from the hair too as well. Okay, so we've got the top lip. So the bottom lip is, and this is a little fuller, the bottom lip is opened, and so we have that open mouth, and it gets sort of tucked in. Here's the flap of her cheek, roundness of the cylinder, and then it becomes maybe an egg form right in through there. And then her little bottom lip gets tucked in. Underneath here where my point is, and on the other side, that still gets tucked into the top. The top overlaps. It overlaps in this doll and also overlaps in humans too as well. Really important to know. This kind of starts to curve over. And then we get her really full bottom lip, fuller than the top. It's kind of an arched curve. So it narrows out a little bit as it starts to get overlapped by the underneath through here. And the same thing on the other side. Through and through there and up and over. And so we get this kind of rosy cheek mark in through here, kind of rosy cheek mark in through there. So he's got a little bit more of a, give her a little bit more open than maybe what she's got. I could close it up a little bit. Could put a highlight, and then I can contour, if I give a little tone on this lip, contour down and over a little bit. Now the thickness between, in my drawing, I'm a little thick here. I don't mind it, but to correct that, I've got to bring her chin down and in. So I'm looking at the distance between her bottom lip and where her chin or cheek is, and so it's a little bit underneath. Now I do that too much and I make her neck maybe too long, so I have to be careful through there. So even if I make a little error, if it's minor, I don't mind, really don't mind at all. If it's major, then I would adjust it. So I might bring this in just a little bit for effect, and then I can take my dark pencil, my pen, excuse me, start to tone this in a little bit and tighten that up a little bit. Okay. And she's got a little bit more of a point for the chin to here. And there you go. And you know, to think we built all of this off of an egg form, or you could have used a block or even a tube if you wanted as well. So I won't fuss too much with the tiara. We'll leave that. And we've got a little fold. So the last thing we'll do is we'll look at a few folds coming in here and on up and over. And I'll give a little bit of hatched line to turn them underneath like so. Little fold in through here. And then with folds, I'm really thinking a lot about how they contour over the cylinder here. This movement in this direction, this is a flow through that way. And then they're little bitty tubes in cylinders that we can start to break down to give a little bit of contour on. This tucks in and over. This tucks over. So what tucks in may get a little bit of a darker line through. This tucks over, it's a little bit lighter, and then back on in that direction to start to give us a fold in through here. Okay, so we broke down a complex object and we made it more manageable by looking at what? By looking at tubes or cylinders, boxes, okay, spherical forms, rounded forms, right? And we started to locate these forms in space, give them direction, and then give them and name them, seek out what their form really was, and started to draw them. Pretty sophisticated stuff. even if you're drawing toys or dolls or still life objects. So I want to go on to do one more, and I want to do a piece of challah bread because it's got some great forms into it. And so drawing food, you'll come into contact with drawing food all the time. So let's move on to one more drawing. So now I want to take on the challah bread. So this object is obviously more organic and certainly natural, right? So it's not geometric as much or man-made, certainly not. And I think looking at this, it presents some interesting challenges, although it's fairly simple and kind of blunt. I want to show you a couple of ways I think about looking at it and how I might go about it. So looking over here, you can break this bread into kind of two distinct, I think, larger forms. I'll show you that one way you could look at it. So I could look at this whole bread system. And by the way, I'm using a hard charcoal pencil for this last drawing. So you can look at it. Here's the bread laid out like this, kind of like a brick or a real strong, excuse me, box form, if you will. So, you know, bringing down the side plane of it, kind of in here, bringing over the horizontal area and through here, and then bringing down the top or the right side, and of course this top as it kind of, you know, curls over. So there really is kind of a box-like, you know, feel to the form when you draw it. So that's one way to look at it. The other way is, since it's got, you know, a kind of a curved organic feel to it, we could think of it as a cylinder, right? So we're moving in this direction, correct? And it stays about the same thickness throughout here and in here, and then we could kind of cut it off like that. So we have what could be this kind of way to feel the form through, right? So it moves back in this direction with each form. But then also, I think looking at it, we can think of this as maybe two forms that are put together. So they could be over here, I'll say they could be two sort of egg-like forms, right, that are co-joined together a little bit here and over and through here. We could look at it that way. And of course here's kind of the top and through here, but it doesn't really tell us a story so much about the side. Or you could look at it as kind of two different boxy forms that are sort of co-joined. So here's the side here, side in through here, and then they're kind of co-joined together, right? Tighten it up a little bit so you can see it really well. And they're sort of co-joined with the other one, maybe slightly going in a slightly, just barely different direction here, if you will, and downward. And they're kind of co-joined together in through there. So we have that kind of form. So that can work too in your thinking, or when you're kind of laying out a drawing very, very, very lightly to help you up. Or you can think of it as, lastly, as two kind of tubes. So, you know, the bread moves in this direction, but if you wanted to really emphasize both the forms over, you could think of them as kind of two very short, stocky kind of tubes that, again, that are co-joined together as well. So this one, and they're kind of co-joined in through here, almost kind of like binoculars, if you will, just to show their top and their side forms. Of course, it moves kind of in this direction and through here. So there are kind of several ways to look at this form. Of course, you get this top feeling, right, of the bread moving in this direction. And of course, this comes down, flows downward, and it kind of, we could say this even curves, right, curves over, and you get that direction through there. So there are, I think, several different ways to look at the introduction, the visual introduction, if you will, to the form. Each one is pretty valid as long as you wind up with a pretty accurate three-dimensional portrayal of the object, I think you're good to go. I would probably use something along the lines of this one, the box, or even the cylinder, just to get me closer to there. And I'd probably draw something that's kind of a mush between these two. And so let's do that now. So let's move to a new sheet of paper, and we'll start with the final on the bread. We're ready to tackle it. Let's see how we do here. So we'll take this bread, start to lay it out. We'll draw it pretty big. Kind of use a rounded, boxy form in through here. So it's all moving in this direction, right? Everything is moving in that direction. So I'll get a feel for its boxy and cylindrical kind of quality here. And so we're going to find that angle, move it down here, like so here. And then we could close this, round this in over here. It's kind of like a pill shape or pill form, right in through here. Now, along about right in through here, kind of where those hubs, these darker hubs in the middle start to turn and come down, that's kind of where that side plane is that I see. So I'm going to make that definitive in my drawing, in more geometric, so you all can see it. And the same thing with our box a little bit, since we're kind of looking down on this boxy form. I'll bring this in, I'll close this right end, I'll close it up a little bit. So this is what I'm seeing in my mind. It's kind of a brick here, right, to about there. And then I'll close that in. So this goes back in this direction. Obviously these are coming back in that direction, right? Little arrows help us. Even with the piece of bread, we can think of it as very geometric to start out with. And you can we'll even lay in the bread cutter, the cutting board that it's on. So it's it's just a two-point form as well. And it will be out here a little bit, coming over a little bit more of an angle. Starts to get more acute, stronger angle in through there, and it would wind up about right in through here for now. Just get that mapped in and over. That would line up about there for now. And then that's negotiable, and I could change that for later on. So I'll just get that laid in. Obviously, it's not as important as as the bread drawing. All right, so how do we tackle this? Now we can go into and look at maybe separating the forms out a little bit, like we talked about in the little prior drawing. And so we could start to say they're kind of egg formed and bulbous. So right in through here, where the form ends here, over to a little bit past middle, right? We can say, okay, that's a curved form in, kind of like a buttock, right? And through here and over, we just keep on going. So it's kind of spherical or egg form like in through here and down. Of course, it's going to have a little hub out through here a little bit later. I can extend that even further. In the next larger form, again, it's kind of molded or attached to it. And so we'll see this negative space right in through here and start to take it on through here as it comes over and out. It extends a little bit further and over. And of course, this plane here tells me that's all this is moving kind of in this direction and coming downward, right? Well, this starts to turn and go up and over this way, right about this break of the plane in through here. So even something as kind of simple as a piece of bread can be broken down and controlled with our three best friends. All right, so we have this hub here through, and then we can kind of see the rest of it in through here, and it starts to kind of come down and mold on through. So we have these two kind of eggy, ball-like forms in our composition. Now our job is to start to take this and make it even more specific to what we're looking at. So, and if you start getting hungry, I understand. This thing looks really, really, really good. All right, so let's take it even further. So the first thing I might start with is this middle form that's glistening with the butter, right? So it's starting to move this direction. It comes from over here and moves in this direction. So to me, you could say that it's kind of a tube, right? And the tube moves in this direction. So we could curve it, right, over, and then it can get tapered as it comes through and end up like that, right? If we look through it, so kind of very tapered kind of feel to it. So we're always looking to say, okay, what's the three-dimensionality of the form? What is it in a way? And then how can we adapt it and use it for our drawing? So it seems to end about right in through here, and I'll start to draw its thickness and its aspect over in through here. It just slightly starts to go on that downward plane, right? Right in through here. Okay, and over. So we're going to locate its aspect, and it's going to go back in space a little bit, right, in through here, and sort of disappear in the bread body, the flour, that good baked good right in through there, up in through here a little bit. Okay, and of course it gets a little darker in through here. We can worry about that later at another time. So we can get a little bit more specific in through here and then down over. So we've got our first one. That's pretty much a main one, right? So that's the first thing I looked for. So I might work hemisphere to hemisphere, this being kind of a separate area in my thinking. The next move I might make is over here where that darker area is, where it's a little bit browned on top and through here, and I can say, okay, let's get this even more specific over here. So I start to take this line and start to look and see, okay, it's starting to move in this direction and over. Okay, get that outline of that bread more firmly. And I start to see this as this area where it's brown a little bit more as a box. Do you see that? This box top right in through here. So this plane, see how it looks like a box, a top plane, okay? And then it could have a very shallow kind of side here. And of course it curves down and over, and we start to modify it, and it gets rounder as it disappears. You know, can you start to see, you know, those kinds of attributes as well? So we have this, right? And it kind of breaks off, gets a little bit smoother because it's a smoother object. It's organic, right? So we have that. And there's the depth. I'll put a little line to show you a little bit of depth as this comes in a little bit. And of course we go over through in here like that. Okay, and then we could come down with our bread in through here as it disappears a little bit in through here, and then it obviously lines up in through here. So this glistening highlight would be about right in through here on the top part of our bread, right in through, kind of right in through there. Okay, so moving on, we can start to say, all right, we feel this is kind of a valley. So it's like the underneath of a cylinder that's been sliced, like so, and you're thinking underneath, right? Like so. And so you kind of have that. So you're always trying to say what is going on with the three-dimensionality before you get into any kind of detail. Structure over detail always. So we come over with this form, and you could think of it as boxy-like, or you could think of it as more rounded, like a cylinder. It's up to you. Kind of think of it obviously as rounded, and it kind of gets a dome over here, right? And it's like a ball in through here. Do you see that? So it's a little bit more rounded in through here. Rounded kind of ball, like an egg form. Rarely do you have a true cylinder, or you have any true geometric form, but you're always modifying and getting close to that idea, and then modifying and changing as per your needs. Right, so we have that. Let me go across over here. and this wants to go downward. This flow goes downward and through here. Okay, so as we come across here, you feel this even more now, the wider area of the bread as a valley. Can you see that? Can you feel that in your drawing? It's a valley. So I'm putting these arbitrary hatch lines to show you this contouring that happens through here. So this all flows downward, right like so. So this whole thing into here, as I'm shading it in, this is all flowing downward through here. And this kind of undercuts it a little bit, like so, right? So we have that undercutting here of our bread. Of course, we come down in through here. We could start to see this as a large kind of tube or noodle in through here. So this flow of this next part of the bread moves in this direction and up. So start to think of it as a direction. If I had an arrow, it would move in that direction. Up and through here. Okay. And so this end of it, see this kind of triangle that it makes in through here? It's kind of a side plane of a pyramidal form or cubic kind of form, and it kind of gets boxy right in through here. Really look at that area, okay? I'll make it even more geometric so you can see it in the beginning, and then we can soften it up because there are really no straight lines in this object. So I see that, right? So that's the top plane of a pyramid. Okay, this tends to get a little shaded in through here. I don't want to belabor the shading too much. I want to talk about finding your three best friends in structure over any of that so far. But anyway, I thought that it would be good to show you a little bit of that. Now it comes down, it starts to get like a tube. You see that, how it moves in this direction? Okay, so we have this flow through here, so it gets a little boxy, but then it curves in through here. So this is moving, this plane of this bread form, of this section, is moving in this way. Okay, see that it's moving in this way, but then it wants to turn here, turn and come up, just like a box or a tube. You've got to be able to see that in your thinking. No matter what style you put on top of your concepts in drawing and painting, and you can look for as many styles as there are in art history. We don't really talk about style that much. We talk about thinking in spirit and tone and attitude, in breakthroughs in ideas about drawing and painting concepts that lead to interesting stylistic changes. So now we have this moving through here. It's boxy still, right? But then all of a sudden, of course it gets more organic here, then all of a sudden it starts to really kind of curve under here and ball out, meaning that it starts to get more rounded and more like a tube. So we went from a boxy form roughly in through here, right? Over, and then we started to get to a cylinder over and through here into this organic bread, where this bread kind of disappears into this section. So we have that, and it gets rounded, more rounded. It goes out, excuse me, goes out through there. Here we go. So squaring through here, roughly, and then rounded out in through this section. Okay? Alright, so let's start now to go for this ending hub over through here. What does this start to tell you? It looks like an egg form. So if I came over here and said, that looks like its antecedent, its best friend, is the sphere. No doubt about it. Now it doesn't look perfectly spherical like a nodule, but it's the end hub of this bread, and it starts, because of the baking and whatnot, it starts to take on a nodule kind of effect. And so we have this, And then we have this form in through here that reminds us of the cylinder. It gets kind of eggy, like a chicken egg. And through here, then it comes down. And these lines where this brown, the browning of the bread starts to even move us. Do you see that? Turns us in, curves us throughout, and then we get curved here, and then it wants to tuck in really, really well right in through there. So it's going to start to tuck into the plate of our that we're sitting on the cutting board and through there. So it's a tuck. So we're really moving down. So it's telling us when we come over here, that form is saying this. Your best friend is saying, you sought me out, you got me now, and then so I want to take you on this journey around, underneath, and tucked under. So no matter if you're looking at Monet or Vermeer or Rachel Rausch, Dutch still life painter, or you're looking at Al Held or some contemporary artist, Lucian Freud, if you're painting representationally, Jenny Saville, those folks, you know, that you might not think, they're still thinking in this way. They have to think in this way, three-dimensionality. So, comic book artists, you guys, you name it, you ladies and gentlemen out there, you name it, they'll be using this technique. And any artist that I don't know. All right, so we're moving on with our bread. Through here, our structure of our bread. Okay, and let me go ahead and just take a moment and I'll fill this kind of browning over and through in a little bit further. And as I come around, as I shade a little bit, I'll move my pencil in the contouring way that this moves downward around this form a little bit, just to help its movement. Now I know there's a lot more complexity going on here. I'm really not that interested in getting all that. I'm just getting a structure sketch. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's move on. So we've got really one hemisphere already of our bread done, and if you're not getting hungry, you're probably not working hard enough. So, not teasing. Next step now is to separate this hemisphere. So I'm gonna pull this over a little bit. Don't be, if this is off, any part of your drawing, or it needs to be adjusted, always adjust. This is your guide over here to get to this, and this now dictates over your guide. Let it be your final, since we're getting to more structural kind of detail. So as I come in through here, as it tucks underneath, I've got a little hub under through here. It's almost like a little oblong cone right in through. Do you guys see it right in through here? As it meets right in through this area, it gets a little darker, kind of comes underneath, and it meets through here. Then of course everything gets toned and shaved down and moves your eye this way. And so we can shade this a little bit more, a little bit more in shadow. But in its nature, it's kind of this rounded cone that ends up kind of over in here where it gets a little darker, a little brown. So this moves over where these forms tuck in. This tucks up underneath this one. And then we have this one kind of coming, emerging, molding, and then overlapping just a little in through there. I can show it by a little bit more darker line right in through here. Of course, later on that's cast shadow from the table or into that deep part of the table right in through there. So let's get that a little bit. And now let's work on this next hub. So this next section, I'm going to take in through here. Notice that we're going from very general to very specific. I'm going to write that terminology down. You should write that down. So drawing, for the most part, is understanding going from general to specific, basic to very complex. General to specific. Very important to really understand and get that that concept in your drawing and in your painting too as well, no matter what kind of expression you're using for the most part. Okay, so and what I mean by that is we've got this whole large general form, which is a subform of the biggest form, and now we're breaking it down into subform components as well. So let's do that now. We'll go a little bit faster. So we've got like a half sphere over through here, kind of an egg form, where it gets browned in through here. So that comes over and down, kind of disappears. And it disappears into this form. This could be kind of a blocky form. In through here, watch. And through here. And then I'll simplify it. Been through here. Here's kind of its side plane. And then over. Right? And then another form coming down in this way. It's very geometric. It could be thought of geometric to begin with. Right? And this might just be one kind of plane through here. So here to here and down. Now it doesn't look like that, right? So now it's our job to make it softer, to make it more malleable and palatable in through here. So I might have to bring this over just a little so we can soften this up. So this kind of gets a side plane, right? But it's curved now, so we can curve that up, make it softer by curving it through. Curve this up and over. This is a curving forming through here. Got this. It's got this nice arch that wants to happen right in through here. So all this now is curving, and we can say that by softening the edges, refining the edges, I suppose. Curved in through here. So all this now becomes this kind of top plane. And you can see where the camera, the reflective light that they use to photograph this product, you can see it's kind of a square here. So, but I guess I'll square it up if I need to. I was going to round it a little bit, but it does get rounder. So it pops off here, and then it starts to come down and come over and through here. And of course, this plane right in through here is where it starts to turn and come back into the table that way. So we can say, okay, I can go a little bit darker in through here, but softer, right? Go back and catch this reflected area just a little bit. So this gets softer, rounder now. So we want to get back to that rounded form, but we could see that this was a side plane, top plane, another side plane, and another side to this left side. So it was based off your best friend, the cube, right? But then there were modifications to that. And you had to be aware of what that form is giving you. Was and is, I suppose. So right in through, this disappears a little bit, turns in kind of on itself. It's got a little bit extra shadow. And again, we could play with this, the shading and the detail on this for a long time, but that's not the point. I would put you all in a coma. Later on, hang with me, later on we'll do all kinds of value studies. This drawing channel is going to be around for a long time. I appreciate the interest and the growth. If you have I also have an idea for a video or an instructional video that you'd like to see, shoot me an email. You can find my email address in the About section of this drawing database channel. It's my university email. Feel free to let me know what you like and what you want. I'll be happy to, if I can get to it. I've already got to some already, and I've got a backlog of a few things, but I'd be happy to address it at some point in time for sure. That's what I'm here for. It's a public service, a free public service that we're doing for the region, the Cincinnati region, the Northern Kentucky region, and well beyond that. We want to reach as many people as we can that want to learn and continue the craft of drawing for free. So it's an outreach project for our university. There is no profit in this project. This is all, I don't get paid for it. The university helps me out with materials and technology, but I do not get paid. So just an FYI. That doesn't mean you have to send donations. That's not what I'm asking for either. We are happy to do public service. Okay, so now we want to finish this out. So we've got this side plane. You can tell where this geometric line I have, and we want to turn this bread, right? We want to get it to turn, and we want to get it to finish out a little bit. All right, so let's do that. Let's take our last big sub form. It's roughly, can you see it? It's roughly right in through here. And moving down in through this way, so we kind of had it in through here. I'll bring it down just a little bit and over. We see that. What is it to you? Is it like a ball? Is it like a box? It gets a little boxy here for me. It tilts, its plane break is here, and then it moves over and sorts to where it browns, and then it starts to fade off this way. So it browns in through here, and then it starts to come down, but this gets obviously rounder. So we've got that subform there. And of course you can even break it down into smaller subforms. These are like little tubes, right? These little detailed areas here where it gets dark, and then it gets lighter here. Then it gets dark in through here. I think of those as little extra tubes in through there, and then it fades off a little bit. So you can break down your subforms into more subforms, and this can go on into fractal, you know, kind of thing. It gets really complex. And that's another lesson in drawing, is you can continue to break things down even more so. More and more and more and more and more. All right. So we've got that subform. Okay. And so we see this moving across this way. This is kind of a valley in through here, right? So I'll darken this up a little bit. So this is kind of a valley in through here. The lighter areas tend to be obviously lower on the plane there. They tend to be more of a valley, like in through here. And then we have this outline, or the contour, the outside moving in this direction. It gets its own little nodule, kind of an egg form in through here. And then there's the side of it, like a box. See that? It's like a little boxy form with a nodule to the side. So it straightens out a little bit, then it curves around. And it's where the browning ends, that's where it starts to curve. The top part kind of goes in, gets a little bit more geometric in through here. I'll shade this downward. Like so. Don't worry if you have a hard time controlling your drawing with the palm method. Keep working at it, but you can also draw with a wrist pen holding method too. Whatever works for you. I want to give you a variety of different ways to draw, and so you can start to find things that work for you. You don't have to be like me, you don't have to be like anybody else but yourself. Alright, so we've got that form set in. Okay, so we're almost finished in through here. So we've got now this subform we can bring over. The ending point here, this curves in and over through here. And it starts to curve in and attach up over through here. And so what does this whole area look like? Well, it's kind of a, I still like to think a lot in boxes. And through here, watch, here, and here's a side plane kind of working in a corner like that, and then it comes down. So this is a plane, right, and then this goes back in a plane. This is a plane here, and this is kind of an undercut where it gets a little bit lighter. That's what I'm thinking in through there. And you could even go further. This kind of extends out like so. So the more you can think through 3D problems, the better off you'll be in terms of getting a real strong three-dimensional look. Alright, so we have now this ending point here. So we'll finish this out. Maybe this comes in a little bit. It comes up. So I'll group that all together so it's all a little bit darker. And this plane gets a little darker. And through here. And I'll go and darken this up underneath as it starts to round out. Bring this hub back, bring this corner edge just distinctively geometric right in through here. And then it starts to round out a little bit. Come down and through here. Kind of a loopy curve. This overlaps. Gets a little bit darker in through there. And we're kind of on our way. Alright, so now what we can do, of course there's a lot more detail you can get to, but look what we started to wind up with, a pretty good representation of the bread object, and we based it off of kind of a bricky box form and started to break down all its subform components. Alright, so let's find our drawing board and our cutting board here that the bread is on, and then we'll leave the drawing. So coming through, I kind of find this angle. It was pretty good to begin with. I find this angle with my hard edge. Kind of think through all this form. You can see that it emerges out here a little bit, out to this edge, and then I might start to fudge and play with this angle. It starts to come in and disappear through the bread here a little bit. Probably got a little bit more, but that's okay. Right in through there. So here I have the edge here. I can bring it in. This starts to come down, so I just connect them, coming through a little bit. It's a 2-point plane for now, 2-point perspective, and it goes out pretty far outside, at least a little bit outside the picture plane. Let's see where we'd pick it up to here. Probably I'll bring it in so we can see it to probably about right in through here for now. It's probably a little bit longer through here, and then you could pick it up the edge and through here this angle and start to play with this angle a little bit. It's going to be wider here than it is here since we're in 2-point perspective and we're looking up above and through here, and then it'll fade out of my picture plane drawing just a little bit. And I'll put a little bit, since we see the thickness here, it won't be completely vertical, it'll be slightly at an angle too, which means it's probably a little bit 3-point perspective now. This will get a little thicker as it starts to come towards us, just perceptually a little bit. I'll move that tape off here, and we'll keep running it through. You might see this edge just a little bit emerging as well, and this would come into a corner that would be off my drawing picture plane in through there. So we'll put a little bit of extra cast or some cast shadow down in our bread just to set it down on the table. And that cast shadow, generally cast shadows are harder edge, but there's so much light going on. It's lit from 2 or 3 different light sources, and it's reflected lighting too as well. It's going to soften everything up. So what you can do, sometimes you can start out with a hard edge with your cast shadow, and then soften soften up, excuse me, soften it up a little bit, like here on the edge, right in through here. You can soften that up. We'll put a little tone on this table. Here, and you can put that down. Don't want to belabor that. You can finish that out on your own if you want. It's really a lesson for another time. So we'll put a little bit. I'll just finish this cast shadow up to about right here, and I'll let you go. So we can do this pretty quick. Just a little extra dark, not too dark. I'm not beating it down. Softening this edge a little bit, the sketch. Really sit that bread down on that table conclusively. Through here. And over a little bit more in through there. And we've got that bread sitting down pretty well. All right, so there you go. So that's a lot. There's two different lessons, one traditional media, and then one, of course, in the Wacom, the Cintiq Wacom, the 22 high def. So a lot of you may not have that, but it's a great tool to use, and I'll be using it even more for lessons in the future. All right, so there you go. So we sought out, we were hiding, our best friends were hiding from us, and we were seeking them out, and we found them, and we broke them down broke the object we're drawing into more specific parts. We went from general to specific, and we found a lot of these organic forms using both, spherical forms and also a geometric, blockier kind of forms. And you could spend a lot of time going back and really detailing this drawing out and spend hours and hours rendering this full. But we'll get there in the future, okay? All right, take care, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.